My wife, 31, and I, 32, have always had a loving relationship, high school sweethearts, and got married after she got pregnant. Her pregnancy was a cue for us to get married. We've always had excess and enjoyed it ever since we started. With very few breaks, I can say we have had so far a very happy life together and no reason whatsoever to think the opposite. However, since we had our son, raising him has been challenging for us because he has always been sick and the doctor thought he was anemic. When he turned 13 years old, it started to flare up more frequently. He would have trapped gas, the type that would make him hunch over and feel like he can't move. He was always exhausted. He could sleep for hours, and no matter how much he sleeps, he gets exhausted. He was always lightheaded, and sometimes a dizzy spell would come out of nowhere. We would usually find out when they would run blood tests because he's always sick, and we were frustrated because we never knew the cause, and since it was so random, I always felt bad for what he would going through because I don't know of any person in my side of the family with that type of illness. We never did a test to know where it came from, since it might not be hereditary, but I just assumed that it was somewhere from my wife's side of the family. The doctor would do some testing, and it always shows that he was anemic, which can be inherited or acquired. So we weren't sure no matter how much iron he would try to consume. This took a toll on our family, and he became our new normal. Fortunately, we tried a new doctor, and he found out that he had celiac disease. He cut gluten out and felt like a normal person again. Celiac disease is hereditary, meaning that it runs in families. Weirdly enough, my wife and I were both happy because for once in our lives, we can actually control the flare-ups and weren't going to continue arranging our lives based on hospital visits. Getting ready to rush our son to the emergency room at any time of the day. We felt a sense of relief. This is once in 13 years. Little did we know that this would only be the beginning of the destruction of our family. Knowing the root cause of where he inherited his illness from would be devastating to our family and open up a 14-year-old secret that only my wife could answer. The doctor recommended that my wife and I take a blood test to find out what part of the family the disease came from. We did a blood test, and it came out negative, meaning that the celiac disease antibodies weren't found in our blood. We did another test, and the results came out the same. The doctor was confused during our next visit and questioned whether our son was adopted. We said no, he kind of left it at that, but it was awkward, and I did notice that my wife was uncomfortable. Like when we were driving home from the doctor's office, I was unusually silent, my mind wandering back to when we first found out he was sick. Wandering back to when our son was conceived, I remember proposing jokingly that we get a paternity test at the time because I was still using condoms, and she just told me not to be silly in an expected reply. She could have freaked out or got defensive, but acting normal was all she had to do to make it go away. I was actually kidding, and now more than ever, I regret that. She knew I was kidding. She was being difficult. Now I have doubts. I didn't dare to question her about it, even though the thought was inconceivable. I have raised him from birth. He is my world, my legacy. At the sleepless nights, the pain and suffering, the deceit is something that was beyond my wildest dream. The idea that he may not be mine was inconceivable. I was scared to even get a DNA test because of what I could find out. Eventually, I mustered the courage to order a test kit online and mailed it. The results came back. My world collapsed. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't process this. We went through college together with very few issues. We had, or so I thought, a happy life together. We have similar work schedules, and I have never once suspected something was happening behind my back. And yet this is not my son. Just when she came home that day, she saw me laying on the floor with a bottle of scotch already half full. I didn't even notice when she was home till she tried to wake me up. I asked her who the father of the child was, and she stood back and looked confused. Then she responded with anger, saying that the father was me. I told her that she lied, and she had been lying to me for 13 years. I told her that I got a DNA test, and it showed that he wasn't mine. She asked me if she could see the DNA test, and I said no and for her to answer the darn question. Instead of answering the question about who the biological father is, she tried to turn it around on me by rambling about how I could have gotten a paternity test on our son, like I had done Xpenti safe, something evil, by getting a paternity test. Listen me, trying to make it out to seem as if getting a paternity test is worse than having an affair with another man, and bringing a baby home 13 years ago and lying to me to raise him as my own. Trying to make it out to seem like it was my fault for getting the paternity test. I told her that she was the reason why our son has been suffering for 13 years, and she knew the reason why. She must have, but she let him suffer and let me suffer so she could hide her secret. She tried her best to deflect and blame shift. I finally told her that if she wouldn't tell me who the father of the child is, I would contact every man she had been in contact or interacted with in the past 13 years and request a DNA test from them. Vaccines from them. My eyes were blood red, and she knew I was dead serious. She finally broke down and told me that he belongs to the coworker from her previous job. She told me that she had fallen for this guy. For about a month, they had an affair a couple of times, and then they stopped because she loved me so much. And through this month, I suspected absolutely nothing and happily lived my life. I have lived my life up until now, but I can't trust her now. I could barely look at her in the eyes. I thought we had everything that we wanted, and we were already making plans of having a kid when he appeared. To me, we were happy. I was genuinely happy, and now I can't help but feel that our entire marriage was a lie. We have a big house, good cars, and a life without any financial worries, but I lost what mattered the most. She said it only happened that one time she was adventurous and just wanted something out of routine. But I can't believe her. This was not simply being cheated. My life became a lie, and I feel I lost everything but the meaningless things. She's not the person I knew. He's not my son. And all in all, I am alone and without offspring of my own. I couldn't hold back the tears. I couldn't stay in my house any longer. I called my boss at work and told him everything and that I wasn't going to be coming to work anytime soon. And I needed some time off. He was concerned about my mental state. He insisted on driving all the way to my house to make sure that I was okay. I wasn't really close to my boss, but he drove to my house and took me out to a restaurant that evening, so I could spend some time away from the house. He later told me that this reminded him of a friend of his that found out that his son wasn't his and he took his own life. He wanted to be there to make sure that I had every support I needed. He encouraged me to take some time off work and do something that I've always wanted to, but couldn't because of my responsibilities. I've always wanted to travel. I never traveled outside the country, besides Mexico, as I have always been working to provide for my family, and I wanted to be there for my son in case of emergency. That was why we never traveled much. I wanted to travel to developing countries, somewhere that is safe and different enough to give me a culture shock. After my boss told me that all of a sudden, I felt happy. It was a good distraction, a new adventure. My wife and I have always wished to travel to Kenya, Namibia, and Thailand. My wife told me that I was running away from my problems, but I told her that I need space to think. It gets worse. I can't look at my boy the same way, and it's not his fault. And I've loved that little pest ever since before he was born, but I can't feel that now. I feel he's someone I raised, but he's not my son. I've taken that connection away with him, with her, with everything. I applied for a tourist visa to Kenya and got one within 24 hours. I had something to look forward to, and I would advise anyone that is going through something similar to travel somewhere different, somewhere with a different culture. It's a perfect momentary distraction. This wasn't the best time to be in Kenya, but the distraction was great for my mental health. As for a few hours, I didn't have to think about my son or my wife, just me, the locals, and nature. I had fun, went snorkeling, boat riding. People look at you with genuine love in their eyes, even though they don't know you. Which was what I needed at the time. But after 1 week staying at Mombasa, I headed back home to put my house in order. I had made a decision. I have made a decision that I will divorce my wife. When I returned home, I felt like going back to where I just came from. Home isn't home when she's home. I can't look at her, I can't tolerate her voice, and I have started to be cold to the boy, which I'm feeling absolutely miserable about. He's a smart kid, and he already knew something is wrong, but I can't help it. I would not abandon the boy, never ever. I feel detached from him, and I as well attribute that to the fact that it's fresh news. Either way, it has to stop, and I am aware of that. My marriage is a different thing. My wife wanted us to go to marriage counseling, saying that this happened a long time ago and she had been good ever since. But what's to say that she hasn't cheated on me after that? The theory I was using protection while I was with her and she was getting raw-dogged by her former co-worker. She knew 13 years ago that the child is not mine, but she lied for 13 years. How can I trust anything she says? I demanded an amicable divorce to give me a chance to heal. We would share custody of my son, and I would still remain his legal dad. I still love him, and this is not his fault. So far, my wife agrees with everything. I don't know with time whether I will feel the same way I do about my son, and that scares me to death. I have told my soon-to-be ex-wife that I want to reach out to the biological dad and let him know. It's better that everything comes out in the open now. She wanted to hide this from the biological dad and from family and friends. I agreed for now till the divorce is finalized. Then I will contact the biological dad and I will tell my parents. Telling my parents would be a hard pill to swallow. I'm still young. I can still start a new family. That will be the best way to forget about the betrayal. Right now, I've already filed for divorce, and it will be finalized in the next 5 months. In the meantime, I am looking for an apartment, and I would leave the house to my soon-to-be ex-wife and my son.